So this coming week is a big week. Indeed, it's probably the biggest in the church year. It is, of course, Holy Week, a week in which some of the most important stories in the Christian faith are retold, and they are dripping in drama. The confusion of the Last Supper and Gethsemane, the dark day of crucifixion and the joy of Easter. This week we don't simply remember or retell these stories like repeats on digital television. No, this week we look to enter into the drama and be transformed by it. We do this through prayer, worship, drama, and perhaps ritual. This week is made all the more intense by our Do You Know Him initiative. For this week, we also reflect on the idea of Jesus as King. A well-timed theme, especially for the start of a Holy Week story, in which Jesus is hailed as a king, although perhaps not the king that was expected. However, for many, the idea of Jesus as a king is a difficult one, because of that word, king. For some, the word king conjures up images of Henry VIII, or perhaps nasty kings from Game of Thrones. Indeed, for many, the word king can be synonymous with brutal, undemocratic leadership, and maybe even outright dictatorship. I have a friend who really cannot describe Jesus as king, but struggles to find other words. However, Jesus once again turns our preconceptions and assumptions on their head. His kingship is of a different kind, a kind that is good and humble and focused on the marginalised. That he is a different kind of king is clear in a comparison between his entry into Jerusalem, as recorded in the Gospels, and Governor Pilate's, recorded elsewhere. Pilate was the governor of most of the region where Jesus lived, and he governed on behalf of a Roman emperor, a powerful king to be sure. As such, when he entered Jerusalem, he came in surrounded by soldiers and weapons, a demonstration of imperial might and power. Impressive, frightening, and not lacking in ceremony and pomp. In contrast, when Jesus entered Jerusalem, a crowd was proclaiming him king, but he didn't look much like one. He rode in on a donkey, scruffy and dirty from his journey. He wasn't flanked by soldiers, but ordinary people, equally scruffy people, waving palm leaves and singing jubilantly. What's more, there is no pride or distant majesty on Jesus' face. There is in fact sadness. He's not long since finished crying. And perhaps on his face there may even be apprehension as he knows what's coming. The contrast couldn't be starker, could it? Pilate is all pomp and power, while Jesus is scruffy and amongst the people. Because that's the kind of king Jesus is, a king amongst the people. Jesus is a king who is always focused not on earthly power, but hearts and minds. He is king of hearts and minds. We see this in how he was always ministering to people, teaching, healing, restoring. His kingdom is not one that is entirely top-down, and it's certainly not authoritarian. His is a kingdom where the last will be first and the first will be last. He builds a movement and entrusts a great deal to its members, to us. We are not merely medieval peasants living under a distant nobleman. We are partners and participants in his great work of restoring the world. He was and is a king who taught love, and not a greetings card kind of love, but a love that is costly, as we will see again this Holy Week. Here then, I believe, is someone we can follow. Here is someone we can serve. Here is someone we can call our King. May God bless you this Holy Week and always.